by moving into that co-location provider, they're going to do the facility, the power, the physical security, and these things here for us, which in some cases may give us back some space at our centers, which we can utilize for other uses without having to look at the potential to expand the building. Services, they just take on more and more of the effort for it. This really just paints a picture of the difference between our data center, which is the more central, and then we refer to large-scale infrastructure, which will have at our area control centers, and small site infrastructure, which will have at our towers and flight service stations. What this does, though, is generally the computing power and the servers that are located from the centers to our large scale, they're relatively the same. So again, that provides standardized training for our technology moving forward, and it'll give us some scalability as things continue to evolve for our teams moving forward. Right now we have a project on where we're first looking at that bottom layer, small scale infrastructure. A couple of projects that we're currently working through that are going to utilize that technology at our towers and our FSS. We're starting that project now, so we'll get that infrastructure set up, and then as we start removing and looking at our common hardware that I talked about earlier, we'll be moving to a common type of computing power that'll be similar, whether it's at a tower or an FSS or in our data center, which would be good for our technologists, good for the engineering folks, standardizes what we have, it's going to reduce sparing, it's going to be easier for parts, things like that moving forward in our inventory management by having more common hardware. As I mentioned, common platform across the environment, simplify management, it'll reduce the complexity for our individuals. Again, one of the things we get faced with is the data flow as we work across the country. It can be difficult to keep track of everything that's going on. We have our ATM specialists that currently maintain data flow diagrams and data flow information that is shared with our technologists across the country. Common maintenance for both our non-safety and safety critical environments, or OT and our IT. Reduce maintenance costs moving forward, and standardized training will be benefits of moving forward the consolidated data center. And again, with the common platform, as our load increases, our applications increases, we'll have lots of space within these data centers that we'll rent and we'll control, be able to increase that again without looking at increasing the size of our buildings. From a deployment perspective, talking to our network folks before I came down, it will depend. This diagram just illustrates the communication between the west, the east, and central, and depending on the criticality of a specific application, we want to replicate it across the country. So when you see that from a disaster recovery perspective, what that brings to us, should we lose the east facility, our ability to start up another instance of an application at one of the other data centers will provide us that ability to continue our operations. Some of them will be a manual switch that you'll have to start up your disaster site should you have a critical failure at one of the data centers. And then depending on the criticality of the application, it could just be running kind of in parallel, but predominantly working, say, out of the east. And should the east catastrophically fail, you can be able to fall back then to the west or out of the central to keep moving. Again, given the redundancy that you have, you would need a catastrophic failure to not have that coming out of one of these centers. Just another example coming out of one of these centers. Just another example where, again, based on criticality, we may only have some applications looking to back them up for disaster recovery, primarily with the central facility. This just demonstrates an example of the data and the telco infrastructure that will be set up once we move in this direction. Again, seeing some triple redundancy between telco providers, between our data centers and our on-prem facilities across the country, which will, ideally for us be a big upgrade for us moving forward and provide us increased stability with our telco. So as we move here, there's many considerations. We'll discuss tomorrow and provide his take on the future of ATSEP. For this specific project, we're currently undergoing an impact assessment, and we're looking at, what change management started to need on that in the last month or so. Obviously, depending on the roles and responsibilities, we're going to need to look at training with a focus on the future. The big thing we run into is identifying the impacts of the new technology on the ATM staff and when they'll be impacted. That's traditionally where we got hung up, is we know change is coming, but we don't exactly know when it's coming. And generally it takes longer than we think. So what that means is that we generally end up maintaining legacy equipment while we're transitioning obviously to the future. It's not like, I don't know how your ENSs operate, but not a big bang. I think just a switch, we turn off what we have today and we fire up a new technology tomorrow. If they want to know, one, when is it happening? Two, what will we be doing when it does happen? Historically, I can say it takes a lot longer than we think. So we talk about these changes, which is exciting and it's providing new opportunities for the future. But sometimes when you're having those communications, it comes across as it's going to happen tomorrow. And that puts a lot of uncertainty in the individuals. They want to know about their future. They want to know, what's going to happen. What my team is currently working on is an ATM roadmap. And that'll try to illustrate when will change impact the specific location. We do, if you took our ATM vice president or assistant vice president here, he has a very good roadmap of technology and technology change that's going to come our way, which is exciting. But what it at times tends to do is it doesn't show exactly or as close as possible when will it come to an FIR. So our intention is to overlay our existing technology with new technology. And then from a change management, have specific needs there that, we can then say to individuals, okay, at this point, we should have information we can share with you on, how is this going to impact you moving forward. Because sometimes it's so far out there, we just don't know. We communicated it, we know we're moving a data center, we know that's going to happen. But yet, we're first going to move our IT solutions onto that because we want to try it out with the IT first. And then we're going to start migrating it over to the operational technology. But again, a lot of this stuff is going to be going FIR by FIR as we move forward. So one FIR might get some new technology or change, say 2 to 3 years from now. Somebody else may not get it for 6 years. So when I look at what our ATM folks are doing now, it's hard for me to see a huge change over the next 3 to 5 years. If I look at that length of a window, as I see it, they're going to be providing coverage 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our legacy ATM equipment is going to be in the center, but some of the equipment, it's not yet set up that it can migrate to data center. So we're going to have to continue to host it on our own premise. So that equipment also needs to then be changed, the software needs to be changed in order for us to fully utilize what we're doing to move forward. So all this to say, the intent is to try to, answer people's questions related to technology as quickly as we can, but also to demonstrate to them that sometimes we don't know because we've not yet fully got to the points that that's going to happen moving forward. But when you look at it, we currently staff ATM to shift coverage. So we decide, we said that you need 8 people in each team to cover 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. You get to a point where reliability and availability of our applications and redundancy of those applications, if you did an analysis and you determined that you didn't need to be there 16 hours a day, you only need to be there 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now you got to look at what's the workload associated with this in terms of the number of people you need. And again, that causes generally concern with individuals because obviously they want to know when they're working with us, they have. So again, generally it's interesting because from my perspective on the maintenance and operations side, I'm excited about the new technology, but I'm also aware that it tends to take longer than people think to get it implemented. And that provides, to me, a great deal of stability for our assets. Because generally, as we introduce technology, we generally create more work. It might be better technology, it might serve us well, it might do things better for us and provide an improved safety and reliability. But generally, as we move forward, we become more and more ability. But generally, as we move forward, we become more and more about the technology, which I feel is a positive and ever increasing opportunity for our assets moving forward within, whether it be data centers or whatever else we do moving forward with our technology. And again, just maintaining that legacy technology while moving to the data centers, and then validating and confirming our workload requirements tied to this change with the data center. And with that, that's what I have today. So again, before I will take questions, if there's anybody, I just wanted to thank the team for giving me an opportunity to come down and speak to you. I feel I'm very fortunate to have a very large group of technologists and assets that are very professional within Canada and do really great work for us. And they're a very talented team. I feel they get really great training as well. But they've been reliable ANS, and they do a fantastic job, and I appreciate all you do. I'm gonna go over here you gotta have a right back with me. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. All right, so in case you didn't hear, the question was around who's maintaining and looking after the migration to the data center. First, I existed. So in terms of maintaining the hardware, changing out drives, storage, these types of things, replacing servers, they can do that. We're investigating how that's going to happen. They use the term smart hand service. Is what they would refer to it as. We continue to have teams back in Canada on how that's going to be done moving forward, between the installation and the maintenance. From a hardware perspective, I think that discussion will happen, how we're going to do that moving forward. In terms of the software, the operating system, as I know today, that would be maintained by ourselves. We're looking at, and we've started down a path where we break that into two opportunities, the operating system layer and the application layer. So generally what we toward, and we will in the future, is centrally monitoring the operations, the OS layer, and likely from our monitoring center in Ottawa, Ontario. And that provides us an opportunity to do remote patching. We can push software, we can update the OS. And from a cyber perspective, we generally try to limit the number of individuals that have that access. I would say traditionally we've been, access, whether it's ATM, everybody kind of had access down to that level. So we're trying to bring that up a little bit from a safety and security perspective. But then from an application perspective, that would be monitored within the flight information region. And then discussions would happen between central monitoring, regional monitoring. If the OS is good, we have an application problem, we're likely to dispatch a maintainer from, say, Toronto or Montreal, or Toronto, wherever our data centers are, to go in and look at the application issue. The question would become, how quickly do we need to do that? Because there's the amount of redundancy and backup ability at the data center. Use an application on one server to fall over to another server, and the application should continue to run. If you lose a hard drive, you lose a storage device, we should never be in a position that we're down. We can then schedule the response, whether that's next week or a month from now or whatever we need to do to get in there. So to answer your question, on the hardware side, we're still in some discussions on that. Application-wise, I believe we're going to do it now. Right?
So telco, that last mile,
Yep.
that was a black box, right? Meeting Keller. So we were talking about how the telco is it's outside of our control. And so the data centers are still going to be using that black box of the telco. And in essence, by including your environment, your heating, your cooling, you're increasing the size of that black box, right? You're taking more outside of the control of the ANSP, which is that black box, right? You're taking more outside of the control of the ANSP, which is not a problem. But my question is how, when we can't guarantee the reliability of the telco, and now we're adding another black box that we cannot control aspects of the reliability there. So I'm wondering how that's going to be managed in terms of guaranteeing that reliability.
So in terms of the reliability of the telco, it's my understanding that infrastructure that's provided, I'll say, from the data center, say, to the area control center in Winnipeg, is enhanced. That's my understanding. I mean, we'll still have components of that network ourselves. It's just it's the infrastructure that the data centers bring into and allow us to tap into at the data centers is what I believe is enhanced. And just the redundancy of the telephone environment, the rules, the protection that they have should improve the overall ability to move data across the country for us. Should improve the overall ability to move data across the country for us. They'll have service level agreements. I mean, we have those today. It's just, it's the question that we get the most is how is this going to work from a telco perspective. I mean, people do it today. I mean, it's not that doesn't exist, but given the safety critical nature of what we're doing. But what this does provide us is opportunities that currently lose some infrastructure. Our ability to potentially route it from another part of the country will be there where maybe today it's not there. So I think that's where we'll get some enhancement by just the backbone that they have available. Go ahead.
My question goes along the lines of the standardization of the hardware. Do you have any proprietary hardware that you have to use? And what percentage would you represent?
So in terms of if we have any proprietary hardware and percentage, I don't have specific numbers. I do know from a vendor perspective, some of the servers and some of the hardware that you buy, there's proprietary information within those boxes that may require the supplier and the vendor to deal with. It's there. They have software or layers of software on the box on the server that they'll be responsible for. So that would be a change. But in terms of our applications would be proprietary for sure. don't have a specific number for you. But with my email, if you would want to send me a question, I can look to try to get you some feedback on that.
That may be an issue for your standardization because
Yeah,
depending on the agreements or warranty, stuff like that.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin. Regarding changes that are taking place, legacy systems, there's still a lot of them are on the last leg. They're either at or beyond their service life expectancy. And with all of the different affiliates here, one thing we hear constantly, and that's is lack of staffing. How, from that canvas perspective, how do you determine staffing? Is there a model that you use? Is there changes that you adapt to as conditions exist? How do you base your staffing on from your ANS perspective?
So, in regards to staffing and how do we determine it, I'll speak for my team. For the engineering side, I don't have specifics, but within my group, with the CNS side of the house, we do have a workload analyzer that we use. So within that tool, we use things like, how many hours a week an individual works a year. We know how much training we, on average, we give them per year. We know how much sick leave on average they take per year. We know how much annual leave, things like that. We have from our asset management tool, we use Maximal, that we pull data from it on all the work that we do on all of our CNS infrastructure, the radar, nav aids. We total that on CNS infrastructure, the radar, nav aids. We total that per work center location. And from that, we know that like one head count, we estimate work around 1,200 hours a year after training and leave and other things. We do the math, and that'll tell us approximately how many people we need per maintenance center. And it's generally, I say, reliable within 10%. So if you have a site that says you require 10 individuals, depending on training level, you could maybe on that site very well with 8 people, or if you're low in training, to get ahead of that, you might have to staff it up to 11, as an example. But so we do have a fairly good idea how many people we need from a CNS perspective, like the workload. On the ATM side, perspective, numbers indicated we need less people than the amount of coverage we provide. So we still staff our ATM teams based on coverage hours. So we need 8 people per team to do that. The workload still comes in very close. I mean, depending on the FIR, like a surveillance team, if I look at the workload in one site, and in our other sites where we have more positions and more equipment, it might be 8.5 or 9. So it's pretty close. So that's how we do it today. On our installation teams, that's still a work in progress, understanding how much capacity we have to install new equipment. But generally, we factor in 50 to 60% of the time dedicated to installation work. And then on my installation teams, I have around approximately 60 in full-time installation individuals. And we've recently moved, 4 years ago, we now utilize pretty much any other technologists can be involved in installation work, assuming they have the installation competency. So we feel we're increasing our capacity to install and get new infrastructure out across the country, providing we have the right competencies and installation.
Thank you. Because that software program using, your numbers really depend on how accurate that algorithm is. So if you work with that, you would get feedback on maybe tweaks or changes or modifications.
I would say we work with them specifically but we do get feedback, and we do get the technologist perspective, or the numbers. They feel they're okay. And we share the results. There's no secret. Like, we share with the teams, here's what the numbers show. Sometimes I think they're surprised because we'll show them, well, here's the average lead. Like, okay, that's quite a good lead. So like when they see the data that we put in there, where we sometimes be a lag before the numbers pop up based on the work. But again, I mean, we've used our tool now for probably 20 years, if not more. And like I say, it's really training dependent. The tool, I think, is good, but if you get into a training problem where, you know, you normally need 10 qualified technologists and you're down to 6, that's where you get the problem. It's not usually because we generally don't, where we can improve is how quickly we get in front of attrition. So it's when do you hire an individual based on the amount of training they need in order to become competent, which generally, you know, you're looking at 2 years minimum, where you can start putting people on the road home and do things like that, where they can work more independent. 5 to 6 years, where, you know, if the teams can demonstrate that, hey, I got 3 out of 10 that can retire in the next 2-3 years, we'll be out higher. And I think we're doing a better job. Where my team tends to take hits at times is we feed all the other groups. So when our engineering groups are hiring in our engineering office, they recruit from my team because it's a promotion. And same with training, and which is great. I mean, we want really good people in our life cycle management roles, and we want really good people in our training roles. But generally, I lose about 10 people a year to promote. So it's great because we want them to progress, and it's tough to know we don't know where they're going to come from. So where to take in an additional 10 people from a capacity perspective when you don't know where you're going to be. And you don't want to hire, ideally, you don't want to be hiring people and making a move to where we have to go.
That's good, because a lot of the buildings also, some of their NFTs, either they don't share the staffing model and get feedback, it's just imposed on them, and also with the attrition rate, how important it is to recognize it takes years to bring people on board, and so you need to bring them ahead before somebody leaves and get that bubble set ahead of time. So
I noticed you used the term technologist as opposed to technician. Even do technologists and someone with higher attainment of education or higher training, perhaps different skill set?
Say from a Canadian perspective, maybe Joe in on this one too, but it's just I see it's an education lesson. Generally, the way we thought it, I believe, both the collective agreement, the way we work it is that I'll say as a minimum requirement, you need a technologist diploma. Is how we phrase it. There can be equivalents to that. Based on experience, or if you come from another country, we'll take a look at that. But to date, we've maintained, and it varies across the country. In some provinces, it's a 3-year program, and others it's a 2-year program. But I'll say, I guess, minimum requirement is a technologist diploma.
With regards to the data centers, is the idea to remove automation systems such as CAPS from the ACCs for the control centers and remove them to 3 data centers, and then the area control centers that just have a remote terminal or workstation?
I would say that would be our future, where our flight data processors would be housed in the data center. Right now, that's not the expectation. be maintained and held within our area control center for the foreseeable future. But I'd say, in an ideal situation, the point would be to move whatever we could from an application server perspective into that center. We still need all the workstations. That's the thing. There's still a huge amount of work in the center. It's not a matter of just going to be pulling in cables and, fiber and hooking them up to the controller positions. We're still going to have the workstation at the position. So the level of work and hardware in the ACC is still going to be a fairly large footprint. It's really that server component that we're looking at. Pardon me?
This is a problem of latency.
Yeah, independently. That's the 3 data centers.
Un término de organización. Creo que muchos de nosotros aquí participamos en las especificaciones técnicas, bueno, también en el mantenimiento de los con el transcurrir del tiempo, la tecnología va cambiando, los procesos más abiertos. Si bien es cierto, muchas de las empresas trabajan, por ejemplo, con X o 7 empresas durante 20, 30 años. La tecnología va avanzando. Si nosotros ponemos un software propietario, lamentablemente el proveedor que pueda venir después va a tener que lidiar con el sistema. En los sistemas de vigilancia aérea que utiliza sáteres, dependiendo si son radar, investigación o ASB, si tú le pones un máster vínculo, entonces el proveedor que venga puede hacer una licitación y una oferta de demanda más abierta. Por tanto, va a haber más participación de diferentes proveedores y la tecnología para mi parecer va a ser mucho mejor. Te van a ofrecer un mejor producto. Si bien es cierto, el cambio para todos nosotros es difícil, porque tú cambiar de una tecnología a otra, el miedo al cambio es difícil, pero siempre el cambio trae mejoras.
Yeah, well,
Right.
So you're talking about standardization. In the sense, as long as you try to adhere to the standards, the new system as open as possible, that will allow changes. You have the example. You have the example of the use of proprietary protocol system. That will make it more difficult to change the provider. We use asterisks, unmodified asterisks. That will keep the possibility for any other resident to come and have a practice system. So basically along those lines. Keep specifications as open as possible. That will allow change is difficult. Change all these grades.
And we'll take that away and report back to, get to Michelle here. Again, I'll talk to our engineering teams on, what they're doing in that, to take care of that. Like I said, I don't work specifically on that, so I think that question will be related.
any other questions for Walter?
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.